Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome to episode 204 of the Last Round Podcast. And yes, even though you are hearing my sexy English voice, Danny Z is here, because normally when I'm in charge, Danny Z is not here. And today...
That's right. I am right here.
There he is. You can hear his voice. And today, the number 3 in the Wolf Pack is Alan Dawson. And yes, we'll be running around the desert looking for strippers and cocaine. A shout out to Hangover.
Welcome back, Al. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's jump straight into it. So, fight reviews. Saturday the 17th of December from the Bournemouth International Centre, Bournemouth. Chris Billam-Smith moved to 17-1 with a KO5 over Armand. Al, do you know how to pronounce the last name?
Not me,
Mike,
no.
Give it a shot, Mike.
Armand Hoxhadj, I think. 14-3. Good performance, I thought, from Chris Billam-Smith, and I think onward and upward to bigger things. What did you think, Al?
I mean, I didn't see it live, but I was at the Apex for the UFC show in the afternoon, and then the Showtime card. But as I was looking through Twitter and kind of having one eye on things going on, that fight, the highlight from that fight really caught me by every single shot in Chris Billam-Smith's final sequence. It just seemed to get progressively worse and worse. As in, I've already forgotten how you pronounce his surname. I want to say Hedgehog, but I know that's ridiculous. But yeah, he just seemed to land at will. Each shot got increasingly more powerful, and it was just a great finish. And I showed people around me, oh, check this guy out that just got a great finish on the Boxer card in Bournemouth. My second takeaway was I actually like what Boxer and Sky are doing in Bournemouth. Before I left to come here in Vegas, I'd never known really any fight events happening in Bournemouth, and now all of a sudden it's like Boxer is creating a new market, similar to how PBC and Showtime's building the Armory in Minneapolis. We've just seemingly got a potential hotbed for quite a cool town to have fights in. And I've been to Bournemouth a few times. It's right on the beach. It's a sandy beach, which is quite uncommon for the South Coast in England. So in the summer, you can have quite good pre-fight activations. So from afar, I have been liking what Boxer's been doing. I think they did a pre-fight activation maybe for the all-women card with Mayer and Bumgardner and Shields and Marshall, where they were on the HMS Belfast. So they've Boxer's definitely got ways, I think, to reach different audiences. And as we all know, and people listening know, it's not just the hardcore boxing fan that's the lifeblood. It's also to get a fight to the next level in terms of popularity. It's just reaching the casual sports fan. And I think Boxer is probably going to be able to do that with potentially what is in store for Chris Billam-Smith's future.
Before moving on to get Danny's take, Al, what do you think of Shane McGuigan as a coach? Because I think when Chris Billam-Smith hit the scene, I think we all said that, looking at him from the amateurs to now, he probably would have been more of your British, maybe European level. And Shane's managed to squeeze every ounce drop of talent out of him. I agree. I think Shane's I wouldn't say he's underrated, because I feel like he's rated is fine, but he never. When you're thinking of British coaches, his name might not come up straight away, but it probably he should be, because his track record with a variety of fighters is strong. I don't know if Chris Billam-Smith will still be able to get beyond. It depends where. It's probably quite subjective what I would think is European level and what someone else might think is European level, but whether he can, European level still good. It's nothing to look down on. Same with how American level is good. Just depends whether you can go from
being top or one of the top in your continent to being able to successfully challenge for a world title and not get to the world title shot, but fall at that final hurdle. Because if you fall, that's when you for me, that's you have probably found your level, and that might be European level or American level, depending on if you're not the best in the world, but you're the best in your continent or something, then that to me is like you still found your level. I'm not sure he can get a world title, but from what we're seeing so far, it's the ride for him and the Bournemouth fans is going to be a fun one.
Listening to I think it was ID Boxing afterwards interviewed Shane. He was saying that he thinks Chris Billam-Smith's probably easiest or best matched up route to a world title would be against Jay Opataya.
Who else is there?
Beterbiev, isn't it?
Oh shit! Yeah, no. I wouldn't go. I mean, Beterbiev, he's a weird one because like Bivol is the one who's actually been tested now. Bivol's the fighter of the year. For me, it should be no debate. Granted, you can look back and have hindsight and think Alvarez took off more than he could chew, but Bivol with his triple feinting and he outclassed him. It wasn't just the size; it was also being the better boxer. And if they ran that back at 168, I think Bivol would still beat him. And then he followed that up with the fight against Gilberto Ramirez, and that was someone who was even bigger than him, and he still got the W. He's been in far higher. His opposition is superior to Beterbiev, so I still don't know where Beterbiev's ceiling is.
I gave you fake news there. I'm thinking
he's a cruiserweight, isn't he?
I was going to say it's
that's what I thought. Yeah,
Makabu, Okoli, and then Jay Opataya.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it was a cruiserweight matchup. Yeah.
And obviously, he's not going to fight Okoli because that's what used to be his stablemate, right? Jaya Pataya was obviously the one that beat Marius Bradis over in Australia.
Didn't he essentially kind of call him out after the fight?
Yeah, they think that Jaya Pataya is going to be the easiest one because I think they were saying Makabu probably won't travel to the UK.
Well, I think, and Al, Mike, tell me if you guys agree with this, but I mean, I think Billam-Smith is what, early 30s? I know he's over 30 for sure, and I think one thing that's good about the division he's in is that it's not as glamorous as the lower divisions, 147, 154, where it's a little bit more difficult to get title shots. There's a little bit more money in those divisions and everything, but at 32 years old, kind of has to make the jump into the world title scene if he has the opportunity, at moment's notice. But like I said, because he's in the cruiserweight division, it's a little less glamorous. I mean, is it likely that he'll get a world title shot in his next fight sometime next year? What do you think, Mike?
I mean, I think if I was him, you've got to go for Makabu or Jaya Pataya. I think those two are probably the weakest links, like facing someone like Okoli. He knows Okoli obviously from the gym, sparred a lot of rounds of him, but Okoli's just so tall, so long and stuff like that. And it looks like at the minute he's going to be stuck in some legal battles before he can get his final fight in the matchroom contract. So yeah, throw money at Makabu or Jaya Pataya if you really think that you're going to get a good return from your investment later down the line from Chris Billam-Smith.
Why wouldn't Makabu travel?
It's just what they said in the interview. Shane said it for some reason. I think he's a Don King fighter, isn't he?
Oh, that's right.
And he's scheduled on BoxRec to face some, I didn't even recognize the name, early 2023 in Miami.
That sounds like a Don King move.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think with Makabu, kind of focusing on him for a second, like when his name got associated with Canelo for that brief period, when Eddie Reynoso went to I think it was a convention or WBC convention and requested permission to, I guess, potentially fight Makabu for Canelo to move up to cruiserweight. Everybody's like, what the heck? What's going on here? But, that obviously didn't end up happening. But I think I don't know if it was you, Al, or Mike, who said that. I think Jayo Pataya is probably the most makeable fight, right, for somebody like Chris Billam-Smith. And I would think that would he get that fight next, or would he have one interim and then get that fight? Like, what's the likelihood of the path forward?
I think next.
Yeah,
I think why not? Throw the money at Opataya, see if they can do it back in Bournemouth. In the summertime, where you could hopefully do some, like Al said, do some things outside, do the weigh-in, down by the beach, make it a little bit of an event for people.
You could put it at the. I was just looking at the capacity for the Bournemouth soccer stadium. I thought it was more. It's 11,364, but you could probably put more when you're adding the pitch.
And they just got taken over, didn't they?
To Bournemouth.
Yeah, they just got taken over by I think it was another American investor in the Premier League. So I'm sure they'd be looking at doing stuff like that, having things at the stadium, trying to attract more people there. And I think it's it's going to be a good event. I don't know whether Chris Billam-Smith would win. I think he is still kind of very limited, but he does the basics very, very well. Does get hit a little bit too much, and he's got that Amir Khan syndrome. When he gets hit, he then just kind of like sees a little bit of red and decides that like he's just going to kind of come forward. But so far, it's worked for him. Look where he's got to. Only one blemish on his record against Riakporhe, right, Al?
I think that's it, right?
I think it was Richard.
I think we talked about that fight before,
and then he's gone on to have a better career than Riakporhe did, because Riakporhe had all that time off. Due to kind of falling out of favor and kind of losing different promoters at the time. But Chris Billam-Smith's gone from strength to strength to strength, and has looked to have a much better career than he did.
Was that lost to Riakporhe? Was that on the same card as Prograis and Taylor? Summer 2019.
That's a good question.
And Shannon Courtenay. I just remember her fighting on the undercard, and I thought she lost, and she was fighting like a journey woman, and she got a bit of a gift. She should have lost like 3 rounds to 1. But yeah, decent card.
I think he's doing okay though. Billam-Smith so far so good. I mean, we talked about that one loss, but I think his path forward is still pretty strong. Is he going to be able to break that glass ceiling into a world title? We're going to have to wait and see. I think he will, but
it'd be a long shot, because I don't know. At times, like he looks like he gets like hit a little bit too much. Like he was a little bit rigid. But sometimes I think in those higher divisions you can get away with that, because if you look at some of the things that like world class heavyweights get away with, if they're in a smaller division, they wouldn't get away with those sorts of things. But bigger, heavier, they don't obviously move as much, so they get away with it in those bigger, heavier divisions, I guess. But moving on, Dan Aziz moved to 18-0 with a TKO 8 over Rocky Fielding, who dropped to 30-3. This was for the British and Commonwealth light heavyweight titles. I think we kind of nailed it last week, Mr. Danny Z, when we said that it was more of what does Rocky Fielding have left, after those paydays against Canelo. I think on the weigh-in, he came in 1 pound over and then didn't decide to try to lose that weight or couldn't lose that weight. They never really said. So he came in without being able to even win the British and Commonwealth light heavyweight titles. What did you think, Al?
I mean, Aziz, I was just trying to look back at where I first heard of him, but I remember it was the first time I'd come across him. I think it was at one of the London shows. Interestingly enough, it might even be the same card as Billam-Smith and Riakporhe. So he knocked out Charlie Duffield in 2019. I remember asking a few of the other press guys around him, have you seen much of Dan Aziz? And there was a couple of the older beat reporters from London, and yeah, they were saying he was hot stuff. But yeah, potential changing of the guard there, like Rocky Fielding, like you say. Not sure what he's got left to offer. And Aziz has.
Right.
Aziz blew him away. I think when you went in there, you could see early on that Rocky Fielding either didn't want it or kind of underestimated the kind of tempo and the amount of work rate that Dan Aziz was going to throw at him. And he looked out of sorts early, and it was just kind of like, what round is Aziz going to get rid of him over? Is Rocky Fielding going to manage to get his butt back into it? And in all honesty, I think that's the last we'll probably see of Rocky.
You think so?
He just looked like the hunger had gone, like I think he'd worked his way up all the way to fight Canelo. And then I remember I said to you last week, it's like the fall from that fight with Canelo to come all the way back down to British was kind of strange, because most people end up, even if the fire's gone, they wait and then they sell their last fight or two, but they do it to like the highest bidder, because they know, like, you know what, like, I don't really want it anymore. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do like a long 8-week camp. So they just sell it. Whereas he's kind of like sold the last fight in his career at British level, which I'm sure the purse was a hell of a lot less than if he'd have just picked, I don't know, another light heavyweight and for a world title standard. So he kind of did surprise me, and he's kind of fallen flat on his face, hasn't he?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, like you said, his highlight of his career, at least up until this point, has been the Canelo fight. That was in New York, right? That was a New York fight.
Where he finished him with a body shot.
Yeah, it was like second or third round. It was a quick night.
Yeah.
Quick night. But Rocky Fielding was very excited when he got that fight. I remember he was posting a lot leading up to that fight, and when they announced it, I mean, he was excited getting a Canelo fight. Obviously the highest payday of his career, and I think he's 35, 36 years old now. What's the average here in terms? I mean, the only person who kind of stays, who has stayed at a high level, that pops into mind has been in the later years was Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather. But Hopkins went all the way to 50. That was crazy to me. And then Mayweather also maintained that high level of skill in his mid 30s and even into his late 30s. So, but it's difficult. I mean, we see it in the fight game. We see it, and as you get older, just like anything, but especially in athletic competitions on all that sports, the older you get, a little slower you get, and I don't know, maybe that's happening to Rocky Fielding, and we're just noticing it now, or have been noticing it since the Canelo fight.
I honestly thought he was overrated.
Well, honestly, I think you mentioned that when he got the Canelo fight, you were very surprised. Like, oh, I wonder, but it was a strategic move. Why they pit him against Canelo in New York, first time Canelo fight in New York. He was going to sell it out regardless of who he fought, and they needed somebody. Get what's the flight from England or London to New York?
6 or 7, I think.
Hours, yeah, 6 or 7.
Yeah, so it's a lot better than coming all the way to the West Coast over here in California.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's an example of someone I would say, and it's not like, again, what I was saying earlier, it's not a disparaging comment. There are levels in boxing. Rocky Fielding is someone I've not really ever associated with, the true world level. He's someone who's like, British European type level.
Who's the best? Well, since both of you guys would probably know this, like, in your opinion, who is the best fighter, I guess, you guys have ever seen in terms of the British or European level? It could be a recent fighter. It could be fighter from 20 years ago.
You mean that somebody that just stayed at that level?
Yeah, but like they made the most of it.
Tell you someone I loved growing up, Al, is Tyrone Nurse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He was such a slick fighter. I liked him. And remember Wadi Camacho?
Yeah, I remember Wadi. He was at the old TKO gym.
Yeah, I loved Wadi Camacho as well. I thought he was really good to watch.
Historically speaking, might be Henry Cooper for Ali, won the British title 3 times.
Kevin Mitchell never won a world title, right? He did fight for one, right?
Yeah, great, exactly. That would be my pick. I remember Kevin fighting. I can't even remember the fight now, but he just boxed beautifully. Really like classic box and move style. Really awesome to see. The one time I really thought, oh my God, was like even before a punch had been thrown was when he fought Katsidis, and Katsidis walked to the ring second, I think. and he walked to the ring in a gladiator costume, and that the mood just shifted. And I just thought, there's no way he wins. You know, it was just completely based on the ring walk alone. And he went, and Katsidis went and just pulverized him. But yeah, Mitchell's a great example of because he did show so much promise, and it looked like he could, you know, could have threatened world honors, but he just never through various issues outside the ring, I think, could just never take it to that level.
Like drink, drugs, and betting, right? Something like that.
But I think even that Katsidis fight, I heard, and I haven't had this verified from Kevin Mitchell, feel a bit bad saying it, but I think he wasn't even sleeping at his own. I think he was like had arguments with. He wasn't even sleeping at home that week, so he's having to sleep on like friends' sofas, and yeah, there's just various things going on outside the ring that, you know, that how many percentage of fights do we say is like won before a fight has even been before the first punch has even been thrown? You know, the mental game aspect of it, and you know, just all the stuff you're doing in the training camp, both in the gym and outside. Yeah, this all has an effect, and yeah, I think it had an effect on Kevin as well. But yeah, Kevin's great shout. He would be mine. I love that guy. Growing up watching him, I thought he boxed beautifully.
Would you guys include those, or you know, any of the names you guys mentioned as surprises in terms of you thought that fighter was going to crack it into the world level stage and they just never did? Would it be those same choices?
Kevin Mitchell, without a doubt, and that his wasn't down to boxing skill. It was obviously everything outside of the ring that wasn't correct for him. I don't know, Wadi Camacho. Like I mean, I loved watching him. I thought he was such a slick fighter. I think those two were more down to like not having really been backed by a big promoter. I think they kind of came in between like the Barry and Eddie type of time, where like when Eddie kind of took British boxing by the scruff of the neck, he took it from local leisure centers and small football grounds to like, you know, Wembley Stadium and the O2 and Manchester Arena. Because before that, there was a huge slump on where you were looking at like, I don't know, the equivalent of fighting at like the Commerce Casino and Fantasy Springs over here, I guess, would be like a similar size, maybe even smaller. Until Eddie came and decided to, you know, kind of grab it and make it into like more of a night out with your music and everything else. And, you know, guys would be taking their girlfriends and it's more of a night out for everybody. So I think that was a problem with some of those guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, moving on to the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas in Las Vegas on Showtime. Frank Martin, 17-0 with unanimous decision, 12 over Michael or Michelle Rivera.
I think
dropped
it's
to 24-1. Throw the microphone to Alan Dawson. You were ringside, so just give us your lowdown on the card.
Yeah, in the week, it was. I think it's fair to say it was a 50-50 fight. That's what people's expectation were. And even when I was speaking to like other journalists and people in the industry, you know, as we were at the Cosmo on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you know, some people were Keith Idek. He picked Frank Martin, and he was quite adamant all through the week that Frank would win. But from memory, he was the only one that was really putting his, you know, not sitting on the fence. Most other people, you know, there were some people who were thinking Michelle Rivera would get through on a decision. And other people like me were thinking 50-50. I edged towards Frank Martin in a 50-50 purely because when you're thinking of a 50-50 fight, you then think about the tangibles that can swing it. And for me, having Derek James in your corner is such a big, you know, card to be able to play, because it just seems like what he's done with Jamel Charlo and Errol Spence Jr., it just seems like a very winning, you know, small stable of fighters, you know, small but really, really elite. For me, that's the best stable that a trainer has in all of boxing, and he has to be trainer of the year. So yeah, just setting it up, it was, you know, throughout the week, it just seemed like either people were picking Rivera, one person, Keith, was picking Frank, but the vast majority were thinking it was 50-50. And then Frank Martin went in, and it was nowhere near a 50-50 fight. For me watching, I felt it was a masterclass. The only thing it was missing was the finish. But the sort of stuff you kind of pick up on when you're ringside, I think footwork is one thing you notice more when you're close to the fight rather than watching at home when you're more reliant on the TV cameras and they might be more fixated on what's going on above the waist. But his footwork was like it blew me away what he was doing. Like how he was pivoting away and getting like throwing punches, landing them, pivoting away very quickly. And so not only was he getting out of potentially vulnerable positions to be getting countered, he was putting Michel Rivera back in a vulnerable position to either throw again or just reset. And I don't think I gave Rivera a single round. I know there was one judge that scored it 120, 107, and then I think there was a 119, 108. And then I think the other one might have been 118, 117. I think 118, 117 is way too loose. I don't know what rounds Michel Rivera won. There might have been one that you could potentially give him, but yeah, the footwork blew me away. It just the accuracy as well. It just felt like a very good statement to make in a fight that media members probably looking at. Who is the breakthrough fighter of the year, and that's a very strong late case for an athlete to make when Frank Martin goes into a 50-50 fight and just completely blows somebody away in a kind of style that, I mean, I'm not sure how it came across on TV, but it seemed like it was a very TV friendly win despite not getting the finish. Like literally the only criticism you can throw at Frank Martin's way is that he didn't get the knockout, although he did get the knockdown. And it looked like there was one point, I think the knockdown came in the 6th, and I was kind of nudging people going, oh, you think he's going to get a finish. And it just never came. But great performance. And I think he's a legitimate contender straight away. I don't think they're going to go for I can't remember what alphabet that was, a lobbying position for. But I think Isaac Cruz could potentially be a good fight next if they're going to go, try and get him out in the next 4 months, 5 months. I think Gervonta Davis makes sense right at the end of the year. Gervonta's fighting Hector Luis Garcia on January the 7th, and then maybe Ryan Garcia in April. If you've got another 8 months left, if Gervonta was going to fight 3 times, that the Rivera and Martin winner always seemed like that could be a fight that would be quite straightforward to make, considering they share the same advisor, manager, however you want to call Al Heyman. They fight on the same network in Showtime. And Stephen Espinosa is really high on Isaac Cruz, and now I'm sure he's going to be high on Frank Martin too.
Al, because there was a knockdown, I think you said the 6th or 7th. That Martin got of Rivera, but he obviously it wasn't a stoppage or a complete knockout. But when you were there, because you were there ringside, when you saw that knockdown, did it seem like Martin could have finished Rivera, like if he wanted to, or did he kind of just keep it safe?
It's easy to say that when you're kind of just watching, but the one part that I'd say in his defense is that it did seem like I'm not sure what round it would. Let's say it's like 3rd or 4th round. It was very clear that he'd beaten the pop out of Michel Rivera's punches. Like Rivera just wasn't attacking with any sort of conviction, and I think that's because Frank Martin had made him feel like he couldn't. So part of me thinks Michel Rivera might have just been setting up to survive through the means in which he could, rather than holding and things like that. He was just surviving by just not getting. Putting him in the positions where he would get finished. Speaking to Frank after the fight, he didn't say he was disappointed in the performance. It seemed like he was pleased, but he said it wasn't his toughest fight.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You think it was just clever matchmaking, Al, that got Rivera to where he was and kind of got us to believe he was something that maybe he wasn't?
I don't want to say that because I don't like. I did. There was a knockout he did last summer, which I thought was amazing. And I still think he's, able to compete at a decent level. And even before the fight, I was thinking, whoever wins, if the loser it rebuilds, could potentially see that fight again in 2-3 years. So I wouldn't want to write him off at all. But I would think it's more to do with how good Frank Martin actually is right now. This could have been a fight between 2 guys who, for me, they're too advanced to be prospect of the year. Some people think prospects are, 15-0, 17-0, like these guys. But, it could have been a fight between 2 prospects. Reality is, looking back, I think it was a fight between 2 contenders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Al, do you think that, obviously Devin Haney has one more fight under his agreement with Top Rank. Its signs are pointing to the Lomachenko fight. How, Showtime, PBC, Steven Espinoza, how much do you think they're hoping that Devin Haney beats Lomachenko and then, he becomes a free agent again and then they can offer him, their stable? Is that possible? Because, I think Martin talked about, he didn't really call out specific people, but he mentioned names like, I want Gervonta Davis. I think Devin Haney's name was also thrown in there. Is it likely that Devin Haney could be enticed to go that route towards PBC and get the Davises or the Frank Martins or anything like that? And how long would Martin have to wait to get a shot?
I mean, even if he stays at Top Rank, Shakur Stevenson could be a potential opponent in the next couple of years. But if I was Devin Haney, I wouldn't sign any long-term agreement with anyone. The best thing I think he could do would just be to sign 1 to 2 fight agreements, whether he stays at Top Rank, because the visibility that he's had at Top Rank, speaking just on a casual mainstream media, through that lens, he's had way more visibility with Top Rank than he ever had with Matchroom. Maybe him and Bill notice that and think that would be, a play to renew, even if it was just for like 6 months or 1 fight, or 12 to 18 months for 2 fights. But yeah, I think Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin are really 2 strong names to attract you to, a 2-fight deal with PBC, as long as that was mentioned in the contract, like, here are the fights. The only upset potentially could be if Ryan Garcia beats Gervonta.
That's true. Yeah. Also, what's your take on that? Really quickly, as a side note, that Ryan Garcia, that he's likely foregoed an interim fight, and he just wants to train for the Davis fight and just wait out that entire timeline until April or May, whenever it might be happening. What's your take on that? Do you think he should have a fight just like Gervonta Davis is having, or do you think that maybe he's doing the right decision here?
I think the decisions he's made in the last 8 months, I think, have been spot on for what he wants. He was publicly telling Oscar De La Hoya he wants nothing but the Gervonta Davis fight, and that was really even quite early in the year, like April, May. I think he was saying that, and now he's got it. Well, he's got a deal agreed in principle, in quote marks. It's not signed, but all parties, but whether it's Premier Boxing Champions, Golden Boy Promotions, DAZN, or Showtime, they all appear to be on the same page. I've got confidence that Ryan legitimately and genuinely wants this fight and has been very pushy and forceful with it to get what he wants. If he wants to do that, I'm fine with it. I would still personally like to see, all fighters box at least 2 to 3 times a year, and that's one of the biggest criticisms on quite a few of the bigger name fighters is that we might only see them like once a year, like Terence Crawford, or quite a few athletes in the Premier Boxing Champions don't seem to be boxing as frequently as I would like to see them. But again, if they fight in April, Ryan can fight again later in the year.
Have you heard any rumblings, Al? I know the whole, like you said, in quotation marks, agreed in principle. There hasn't really been any formal contract signed or anything, but there obviously was some type of discussion for them to all announce in unison like that. Have you heard any rumblings about how the deal might work with DAZN and Showtime, or maybe if it's the United States, Showtime, internationally DAZN? Have you heard anything?
So if you speak to people from Showtime, they say that it's their pay-per-view and they're leading it, and they've given the license to DAZN in the same way that Sony PlayStation or DirecTV would have a license to show the pay-per-view. If you speak to people from DAZN, they say the fight wouldn't have happened without our agreement and we're partners. I don't know if that's going to be, DAZN are very both parties that I've spoken to are very adamant that they've, that's the story that they're going to want to tell. Yeah. And I don't know if it's going to get to a point where, one network is going to be pissed off with the other because they might feel belittled, in the sense that, DAZN feel, from what I could tell, that, they were calling it a partnership. although even when you hear it, the partnership seems to favour Showtime because it's their broadcasters, for instance. You're not going to be hearing who are I don't even know who them. Is it Chris Mannix and Sergio Mora? Are they the kind of lead commentators for DAZN? You won't hear them.
Yeah, Todd Grisham sometimes is on there.
Yeah. So they won't be, having anything to do with the actual the commentating of it. It would be Steve Farhood and Al Bernstein. Maybe Brian Campbell, Raul Marquez would be these guys. But yeah, I mean, it could potentially be an issue because it's DAZN might feel like they want to pull the plug if they're not being treated with the respect they think they deserve.
Yeah, that's true.
And to be fair, they should. Everyone on that side deserves to be treated with respect. If it's going to be if it's going to be a co-promotion between TGB Promotions or GTD Promotions, which is Javante Davis's side, and then Golden Boy. I know Joe Markowski, the DAZN EVP. He would be at the fight week for the whole fight week. So you would see people like me and Boxing Social and boxing scene. Joe Markowski would be quite prolific with speaking to the press during the week. But it seems to me that it favours more. Not favours, probably the wrong way of putting it, but it's going to be more of a Showtime lead.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard anything on the front of Gervonta Davis's split with Mayweather Promotions? Because he put some tweets up and then he deleted them, and then there was like a random text to some reporters saying that he's no longer with Mayweather Promotions, and then he came out and said that wasn't anybody on his team. But then they had the press conference for this fight against Hector Luis Garcia, and there was no Mayweather Promotions, there was no Leonard Ellerby. Is there anything on that front that you've heard on why the potential split happened?
I mean, I don't know the why, but I'd imagine Gervonta Davis is at the point where, and it's the same with Devin Haney, he doesn't need a promoter, really. He's gotten to the point where, if you're thinking mainly fighter first, and, we should probably be thinking that really, it's in his best interests to have as much of the money and the power for himself. Really, I mean, he's not at the level of like Conor McGregor or Floyd when he was at the peak of his powers, or Manny Pacquiao, but he's definitely at the point where he can sell 200,000 plus pay-per-view buys. He can sell out pretty much any arena he wants in the entire US. With the same thing I mentioned with Devin earlier, if he was going to sign with a promoter, and it doesn't matter if he's going to, sign with, whether that's Oscar at Golden Boy or Bob Arum at Top Rank or Eddie Hearn at Matchroom, or even back with Leonard Ellerby and Mayweather Promotions, for the sake of his career, should just be 1 to 2 fight agreements based on, I don't think people should be signing like long-term agreements when they when they're as powerful as what Gervonta Davis is, because he's still only 27, 28 years old. If he's signing a 5-fight deal, he's basically signed away the peak and the prime of his career. And I think he, regardless of who the athlete is, if you're at that age, it would be more like financially beneficial to you if you're only signing away 1 year increments in your when you're in your prime, because you can always increase that, increase the money you're getting in the next deal, and also play off all the promoters as well. Play them off against each other. You go to the auction. I think I don't see him ever really leaving PBC. I think that side is still, he's still got not the commitments, but he's still got the agreements with Premier Boxing Champions and Al Heyman and Stephen Espinosa and Showtime Sports.
Right.
But yeah, on all the literature and that's a really old way of saying it. Literature, the fight poster. Yeah, there's no Mayweather Promotions. He's certainly a free agent.
Yeah, but I think that's a good point though. How you brought up like Devin Haney. Devin Haney became like a free agent essentially, and then he wanted to become undisputed. He made it happen. He went Top Rank. He had to sign essentially a 3-fight deal, but he's undisputed, and I'm assuming, just guessing here, educated guess that Davis saw that and he's like, man, my drawing power is more than his. What if I do that? Then I can, I think that possibly factored into his decision to go on his own like that in a way. And he's like, well, if Devin Haney can do it, and I mean, I think it's easy to say that, like I just said, Davis is a bigger star than Devin Haney. Devin Haney is undisputed champion at 135 pounds, but Davis is, a lot more box office than Devin Haney is.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like thinking of Haney, like how empowered has he made himself, and by taking his career in his own hands, it's a success story for what he's done to, get that undisputed fight, win it both times, and now he's in just a great position to run his way through whichever promotional company he wants to. I think he beats Lomachenko. I don't think that's a competitive fight really anymore in 2023. I think Haney wins that quite comfortably. I think Haney's the number one. My number one, number two guy at lightweight. Lomachenko's significantly smaller than him. Did you see that when they were side by side?
Yeah.
I think even Lomachenko or one of his team was saying, he looks like a heavyweight. He doesn't. He's a very big lightweight. It's Lomachenko that doesn't look like, credit to Lomachenko. He's taken fights at weight classes that he's not properly sized for. But yeah, like the opposite example of Haney and Gervonta is Anthony Joshua signing like a lifetime agreement with, Matchroom and Sky. Maybe not Sky, sorry, with Matchroom. And I mean, maybe that was the bigger play because with hindsight, he went on to lose back-to-back fights, and maybe his star is never going to shine as much as it was before he had ever met or learned even how to spell Alexander Usyk. But yeah, for these sort of guys in the US, where the pay-per-view culture here and the pay-per-view business is quite a bit different to the UK. I think people, once you've reached that pay-per-view status, it's fine to stay loyal to people, but I don't think you should be signing long-term agreements, even with your pre-existing promoter. I just think it should be 1 to 2 fights and just see what they can do for you. I do think, though, that it was Leonard Ellaby that put the Ryan Garcia fight together with Eric Gomez. From everything I understood, those were the two people that were most frequently involved in the negotiations. And then when it became doable from the boxing point of view, that's when Showtime and DAZN had to then work together to make sure it could then be made, from a broadcasting point of view. So I don't think Gervonta becoming a free agent has suddenly meant he's got the Hector Garcia fight, which is a great fight too. If Frank Martin isn't the breakthrough fighter of the year, Hector Garcia potentially is. I'm not sure how that fight was made, but I do think that I was hearing that those talks between Garcia and Ryan Garcia, and Gervonta Davis's representatives, they were going back as far as like August, September, and Leonard Ellaby was a big part in pushing that through.
Anything else of note from that card? I mean, obviously there was other fights before the main event, Al, and then I think there was a Mayweather Promotions card after the broadcast as well, right? I mean, anything that any of the fights you want to touch on that was of note?
Yeah, so I mean, this is just like how annoying can boxing be from the point of view of a boxer. So one of the young teenage fighters I've really been liking, following from Leonard Ellaby's and Mayweather Promotions stable is Jalil Hackett, and he was supposed to fight on that card, and his opponent didn't pass the pre-fight medical, and that was only found out on like Friday. Maybe not the medical, but there was some sort of issue with the opponent not being able to actually physically fight or get the go-ahead to fight. And Jalil just never ended up on the card, and I think he was heartbroken by that because he wants to go out and perform. He's only had 4 fights. He signed his pro deal with Mayweather Promotions, I think, quite early in 2020, post-pandemic. I don't think it was like early in the year. But yeah, he's only had 4 fights really in 2 years. But he's had quite a few. Like if it wasn't for injuries and things like that to his opponents, he probably would have had 7 by now. And Jalil, I think, is really, really well poised to potentially become like one of the nominees for Prospect of the Year in like 2024, maybe even 2023, depending on again how you define a prospect. But yeah, he didn't fight on the card. Nor did Dorian Khan. I was really up. Dorian Khan's another guy. He's actually a friends with Jalil. I think they're both, childhood mates. To back up a little bit on Jalil, he's actually Gervonta Davis's preferred sparring partner. So if you can imagine someone who can actually hang with Gervonta, and not just get like beaten up and on the floor within like, 5 however many rounds, Jalil can hang with Gervonta Davis from everything I've heard. But yeah, Dorian Khan is his friend, and Dorian's like a really good talent as well. He's got like, looks like he could be in a boy band. He's got like quite really like nice eyes as well. So when you hear him speak, he suddenly speaks like Barry White, which kind of throws you off again a teenager. But yeah, neither of them fought on the Mayweather Promotions part, so that was a little bit deflating. But the guy that really brought that, pumped that balloon back up for me was a 17-year-old kid called Robert Merriweather. So he's never fought in the US before. I think he had 2 fights in Mexico. This was his first ever fight in the US. And again, like, the people that you're fighting at 3-0, you're supposed to blow through them. But it's really hard to gauge how good, prospects, not even prospects, novice boxers can be. But he looks amazing, walked out with confidence, just the way he had jittery speed that can just bamboozle someone as an opponent. Like, how do you even know where to, stand and move to? And then every single punch that Robert Merriweather landed, I hadn't heard that pop, in the glove connecting to the flesh since Frank Martin's fight, which was probably 4 fights before. Really, really one to watch. If anyone's going to want to follow the career of a prospect before they become a prospect, definitely follow the career of Robert Merriweather, because he looks like he's going to be special. I even texted Leonard Ellaby when I was ringside saying, Jesus, he knows I'm high on Jalil and Dorian. I said, I think you've got another one right here. And he replied saying, yeah, he's the goods. So I think they feel like they've got like a potential star in their hands as well.
It's a little bit tongue twisting with the Merriweather and the Mayweather.
This is like, this might be a bit of a niche reference that maybe more for Michael, but Arsene Wenger at Arsenal and Wolfgang Wolf at Wolfsburg. These are kind of like soccer managers and soccer clubs from Europe. And yeah, it seems like if you're called Merriweather, you're probably going to be destined to end up training at the Mayweather gym in Chinatown in Las Vegas and signing terms with Mayweather Promotions.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Moving on to the last card of the weekend, Commerce Casino for a Golden Boy show on DAZN. The main event, Raul Curiel moved to 12-0 with a KO2 over Brad Solomon. This was for the NABF welterweight title. And I'll throw this to Danny Z, who was the man on the scene.
I was on the scene right there for the Golden Boy card. I was impressed. He Brad Solomon's been in there with Virgil Ortiz. I think Alexis Rocha. I know Ortiz knocked him out. I think Rocha went the full rounds with him. I think it was a decision. But Curiel knocked him out. I think it was 2-3 rounds. It was early. I think it was 2 rounds. It was 2 rounds. So right away, because what the crazy thing about it is that so we were at the media table. The media table was behind the the crowd. So it was like the floor seats were like up in the front and stuff like that. But the media table was like behind them, but we were elevated. So we were elevated above everybody so we could have like an aerial view. And like we all know, sometimes the PR representatives for each respective promoter will bring the fighters to the media table to have you ask some questions, get some quotes, some video, stuff like that. We were speaking to, I think, Diego De La Hoya. I think it was him. He was in the co-main event, and it was the beginning of like the second round. So he was on the side with us, and we were all kind of around him, but still watching the fight. And then all of a sudden, you see Solomon just boom goes down, and we're like, "Oh, what?" So everybody just kind of ran away from De La Hoya. They were still, some people still talking to them, but I remember I was like, "Oh, I missed it." So like I went over there, and then I asked some other media colleagues like, "Oh, what was the shot?" And they kind of told me what happened. Because I didn't, Solomon, at least up until that point, obviously you start fighting, you start becoming these this journeyman and you start fighting, these uh advanced talents like Ortiz and Rocha and stuff, eventually the miles are going to get on the car odometer here. But um I guess I just had that preconceived notion. I was like, okay, well, he's been in the ring with a lot of these guys. He's done, he's survived and stuff like that. So I thought Curiel's probably going to go a couple rounds with him, but no, it was a quick night. Curiel told us after the fight that he's ready for anybody, like, give us the general statements. But Blair Cobbs and Alexis Rocha were both there. Blair Cobbs was actually went into the ring. So it was weird because the ring cleared out, and then Blair Cobbs and then a PR representative for Golden Boy. I think it was Jane, who's now the PR director, and Raul Curiel, and then a commission were right there in the corner. They were the only ones like in the ring. And then I had asked Curiel what Blair Cobbs had asked him. I was like, oh, he got onto the ring with you, and it was just you guys. It wasn't even his team. Like, everybody had cleared out. I was like, what did he ask you? And he kind of like laughed about it. I kind of feel like he didn't tell me exactly what he said, but he said, oh no, we're friends. He's like, he's my friend. He's like, but if that fight happens, obviously, I'm ready. Because Blair Cobbs, he's kind of got that WWE theme going. He showed up like in his bright silver metallic jacket, kind of Back to the Future style, and so we were asking him, like, was he there to pick a fight? And he's like, no, he wasn't. He's just kind of there. I mean, but I think it's possible that Golden Boy matches up Cobbs and Curiel. Especially if Cobbs was there trying to, even if they weren't looking at that as a potential next fight for somebody like Raul Curiel. I think Cobbs is trying to make it known that, like, hey, I'll get in with this guy next. So. I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't think him fighting Lex is right for him right away. I think Lex is a little bit too advanced for him right now. But they are both Golden Boy fighters, so you never know. But I do like a Cobbs fight. Maybe in the next couple months for somebody like Curiel. And I think Curiel was signed, if I remember correctly, when I was having conversations with other media members. He was signed from the Canelo Bivol card. I think I'm right. I think Curiel was on that. Was it him or was it Silva? There was another. It might have been Aaron Silva. I'm sorry. We were talking about so many fighters. I mean, you know how it is, Al. You kind of have these conversations with everybody, and then everything kind of mixes together. But yeah, I was impressed.
It was Silva.
It was Silva, right? Yeah, it was Silva. But yeah, I was impressed with Curiel. That was the first time I've seen him live. He's in that weight class 147. So, even if he moves up to 154, that's also essentially a lavish division. So between 147, 154, it's a little bit more attention on those divisions, like we all know. But yeah, I was impressed, and the guy, he was speaking Spanish to us, and I had asked the PR of Golden Boy. I was like, oh, is he comfortable in Spanish? Because I'm bilingual, so I was like, if I need to speak in Spanish, I'll speak in Spanish. But she said, oh no, he can speak English as well. I was like, oh, okay, so he's comfortable in both. So everybody was some of the people that were asking in Spanish, but then I just asked in English, and then he answered me, and everything was great. But I was a fan. I appreciated it. Al, did you get a chance to maybe see the highlights or kind of read about it?
No, I haven't, just because of the. I think I watched 20 fights on Saturday between the Apex ones and the BBC ones, but I'm half disappointed that Cobbs didn't woo in his face.
Yeah. I was waiting for that, but it didn't happen. But
so, remember when Rocha and Cobbs fought, and then afterwards we're kind of asking, it was clear that you both were speaking in the ring. What did Blair say to you? And Lex was just like, he didn't say much. He was just wooing.
Yeah, that was his whole theme. But when I saw him there and he was wearing the whole getup, this bright silver, Back to the Future style jacket, and I thought, oh, okay, well, he's gonna try to make some type of noise, but because there was even fans in attendance wooing at him, and he would look at them and then put his hand up, and but I don't think he found the moment to. I mean, if the camera was on him at one point or another, I don't know if it was or not. I'm sure he would have did it. but I know there was fans wooing at him, and he might have wooed back. I just didn't. There were so many people doing it. It was just kind of like you thought it was all the same person. But yeah, I think a Cobbs fight is likely next. I'm sure Golden Boy is looking at that. Because they have what Lex is at one. Alexis Roach is at 147. They got Curiel at 147. They got Cobbs at 147. Virgil Ortiz at 147. Obviously, Virgil is the cream of the crop out of that group. But am I missing anybody in terms of who's signed to their stable? From what you guys can think, those are the ones that popped into my mind right away.
What's next? What do you think's next for our boy Lex?
So I think I'm allowed to say.
Are you allowed to say?
I think I'm allowed, right?
You tell me. I don't know.
He's supposed to be headlining the Ryan Garcia show.
Oh, the one that Brian was supposed to fight Hesta on, right? Like they're looking to salvage that
show and have Lex headlining it.
I mean, he deserves that because of how him and Blair stepped forward and saved what should have been the Virgil Ortiz show.
Right.
I think. And now he's stepping up again. So I think, Golden Boy have got a good one, I think, in Lex.
I mean, you got to give it to somebody like Lex. I mean, it's good to have those types of fighters where, they'll step up and they're entertaining. He obviously, like you just mentioned, he stepped up when Ortiz, he was supposed to fight, I think, at USC, the Galen Center, and that fight didn't go through. And then Lex and Cobbs took over as the main event. Obviously, Al, you've talked to Lex, you've interviewed him. We've interviewed him 1,000 times as well. We've talked to him, just have conversations with him and everything. He's a great kid, and he works hard. So, he's dedicated. You like having fighters like that on your stable that, hey, you want, like him and like Jojo Diaz, they're kind of similar. Like, hey, you need me, I'll step in. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll fight this guy. Those are good, competitive mindsets to have in your promotions, because then, they can salvage a show or put butts in seats, and you can build them from there, right?
I think from like strategic point of view from Golden Boy as well, it's kind of like, what's going to happen with 147. One of the things actually from that Showtime show, Errol Spence was obviously there throughout the entire week. He's a big dude for 147. I've got no idea how long he can stay at 147. And it seems like from what although I didn't hear him say this, I heard that he said on the broadcast that because of the latest car accident he had, that wasn't his fault. Somebody came into him, but his car was totaled. He doesn't think he's going to be able to get out until like March, April, May. April, May, June into 2023. And it didn't seem like Terence Crawford would be next, even though neither fighter has a next opponent lined up. So from Golden Boy's point of view, if Errol's going to go up, if Terence is going to go up, or all of a sudden all of the belts are available. And it seemed like from, you're not going to have Lex and Ortiz fight each other without both of them having already tried to get one belt each, and then they can unify, on what would be one of Golden Boy's most significant cards of the year if they can get that, sorted. So I think from a strategy point of view, Golden Boy might be trying to figure out, what's going to happen with the Spence and Crawford situation.
Yeah, really, you kind of have to wait for them.
Yeah, I mean, we need like resolution from. I think we need to move on as well. Like, how long can we really wait for Spence and Crawford to fight at 147? I can't remember what boxer I was speaking to, and it was someone who was like either they were with PBC or they were really close to Errol, and they said even in like 2020 that they don't think they'll ever fight at 147, and if the fight was going to happen, it would be at 154. But it's a conversation for a different day. I think it's just holding up the division, and from Golden Boy's point of view, they're probably like having one eye on that, just because they probably want their guys to go on and become the champions themselves. If they can fight for a vacant title against whoever.
So I forgot to have some audio from Curiel. It's about a minute. I asked him about Cobbs, and he was in the ring, like I said, and I asked him, I was like, hey, he got in the ring with you, and there was nobody else there. It was just you and PR and commission. I was like, what did he tell you? Like, and he kind of laughs, which kind of tells me like, okay, You didn't tell me something, but he just kind of laughed it off. But let me see. I think you guys will be able to hear it. And
Bro, Blair Cobb was in the ring with you in the corner right after the fight. What did he tell you?
No, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. We're a teammate too. But like what I'll say you, he's in my division. Never talk about a fight, but he wants to be a world champion too. Me too. That's my purpose in this sport. But it's nothing personal, just business. And if the fight is happen, I have no problem.
But do you think he was here because he's
No, he's just support me. I know him. He's just support me, but that's what I tell you. It's nothing personal. Maybe we can fight, and inside the ring is a different thing. But down the ring, like we are good friends. We're good friends.
What's the plan in 2023? What are we looking
for? Keep busy. I'm gonna talk with my manager, Frank Espinosa. I'm gonna talk with my promoters, Golden Boy. They always support me, so we'll see what's going on for me. But I think big things coming.
So, he said that they're good friends. Like I said, I repeated from what I was saying earlier. They're good friends, but he was willing to fight him if it happens. But I just think that was funny, just being right in front of him, and he laughed it when I asked that question. I was like, "Hey, he got in the ring with you. What did he tell you?" And he kind of like laughed, like, "Oh, which kind of led me to believe, like, what did he really tell you?" But I mean, yeah, like we're just kind of piggybacking off of what you were talking about right now, Al, in terms of Spence Crawford kind of having all the belts in that whole division. Everybody's just kind of waiting for them to see what happens. And do you think somebody like Ortiz, not Curiel, obviously he's just started, I think he's okay at the weight, but somebody kind of looking at Ortiz, do you think it's going to come to a point where Ortiz is just going to have to move up without even getting a title shot?
I've not seen him since. I don't think I even saw him at that fight week when he came ill. Like I think on the Tuesday or Wednesday that main event fell apart. But I get the impression Spencer's he can't have too many more fights before he moves up. And if who's Spence really going to likely fight if he's not going to fight Crawford? Keith Thurman's name keeps being thrown around, but Spence said ages ago, I think he's still got a bit of a thing about not wanting to fight Thurman for the payday or whatever, just because of some previous grievance that he has with him. I tweeted about how I liked the Fundora fight if he was going to go to 154, and Spence liked that tweet. When I put that out there, so it seemed like that is someone he would potentially be interested in, if not 154 generally. I would, if Spence and or Crawford move up, I just want to see, Ortiz, Boots Ennis, Rocha, throw him in there as well. I just want to see those. There's so many other strong guys at 147 that we just haven't seen get world title shots yet, and they're really, really overdue. It's starting to remind me of like how I'm referencing MMA here. I apologize if other listeners aren't following MMA, but how Tony Ferguson was just picking up win after win after win and really was overdue a world title shot, and it just never came for him. On the flip side, Leon Edwards had like 10 wins in a row. He was overdue a title shot even by 2019. He finally got it this year, and I wasn't sure if he was going to win, but he got like a Hail Mary pretty much last minute knockout over Kamaru Usman. But like they're still overdue. How much money are you leaving on the table if you're due a world title in 2019, but you don't get it until 2022, 2023? But Virgil Ortiz is, he's well overdue a world title shot, and same as Jaron Ennis. And I just feel like, just getting a bit. I want to see them get it at 147. Can't see Crawford or Spence fighting them. I think it's time either Spence and Crawford really just fought each other or moved up for the sake of boxing, really, and that 147 division.
Mike,
any more you want to touch on, Dan?
Yeah, I think there was a Diego De La Hoya co-main, right? Who was his opponent?
Jose Santos Gonzalez.
That's what it was, Jose Gonzalez. Al, are you familiar? I know you were back home before you obviously made the move to Vegas, but did you ever catch any fights with Diego De La Hoya?
No.
So he was here. He was big out here in the Southern California scene. Obviously, he's still going, but what kind of really stopped I guess, halted his momentum is he fought Ronnie Rios at the War Grounds in Carson, California, Dignity Health Sports Park now. And Ronnie Rios beat him. Mike, did he stop him or did he? Was it a decision?
Ronnie stopped him with a body shot, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think he did stop him. It was a good fight. But I think De La Hoya was maybe the A side in that. He has a De La Hoya name. They were hoping, kind of piggyback off of that. But he, at least at this fight against Jose Gonzalez, he won the fight. But I don't know. I just think he was a little bit too. Like, to me, it didn't look like he improved too much. He was kind of wild, just kind of throwing a lot of haymaker punches sometimes and just looking to connect. I was telling some of the people on media press row right there. He's just kind of looking for that shot and the time. And the shot, I think that really, I don't think did it go to decision, Mike?
Yeah.
I know he dropped it once or twice.
It was a technical decision, this one.
Yes, it was. It was a technical decision. But I just felt that he was a little bit too wild at times, even though he won the fight and he left openings that a seasoned, veteran or contender or even journeyman would be able to take advantage of. And I think at this point, he's been fighting for quite a few years now. I think those are certain holes that he really should have fixed a long time ago. But he did win, and they're going to put him out there again. The De La Hoya name, still carries a lot of weight. So we'll see how that goes. I'm trying to see what were the other fights? Just touching on them quickly. Just say the outcome.
Jose Gonzalez moved to 14-0 with a unanimous decision over Ivan Cano Garcia. Yes, that is Pablo Cano's brother.
Right.
And Cecilia Breakus moved to 37-2 with a unanimous decision 6 over.
Oh, Joust Gonzalez.
Yeah, Joust Gonzalez. Yeah.
Yeah, Joust. Yeah.
Oh, Marisa, he went to Joanna Portillo.
So before we get to the Cecilia Breakus fight, Joust Gonzalez. Al, who Joet Gonzalez? He's with Top Rank. So Joust is his younger brother. He's still signed to Golden Boy. So that was a hard fight. He won the fight like 98-93 and, unanimous decision win. But the scorecards do not tell the story of that fight. He was getting hit hard. He was the busier fighter. He was more the aggressor. But what his opponent was just landing, like, each individual shot. He wasn't throwing combinations, but each individual shot, you heard it. And everybody, every shot I heard, I was like, how did he not go down from that? And, he was able to survive and did end up getting the win. But we were waiting for the PR representatives of Golden Boy to bring Joust Gonzalez over to the side so we can talk to him and get some quotes, get some content. And then all of a sudden, right in front of the media table, he's on a stretcher and they're just wheeling him off. And we're like, oh, wow, what? And we were all talking like, oh, we hope he's okay. I mean, he won the fight, but then Golden Boy's PR team came and told us like, oh, he should be okay. He felt a little dizzy, and I think there was an accidental clash of heads, so there was like a cut. But he said he felt a little dizzy, so I think as a precaution they took him to the hospital. But yeah, that was a tough fight for him. I know that took a lot out of him because he had to work hard for that win. I mean, those scorecards don't tell the story of that fight. And then Cecilia Breakus, I spoke to her. I think we tweeted that out in the video and the tweet. I spoke to her and asked her about because I was surprised when I heard that she was on the card because I thought after the Jessica McCaskill loss, was it 2 fights? She had mentioned she was going to retire, and we thought, okay, well, you had a good run. That's it. But she came back and I asked her, well, what made you come back? And she said, a lot of it was like a mental health thing. And, somebody like Ryan Garcia inspired her through the battles that he was going through. So she gave him a shout out. So, I think she just felt, maybe the pandemic, like a lot of people, the world kind of stopped. So she kind of just sat there like, man, kind of in your thoughts. So she's like, I can still do this, and at 41 years old, she was back in the ring and she got the win and she looked pretty solid. She said she felt okay in there and she didn't have any issues. And, she's going to keep going into the future. So she said she has no plans to stop. And she said she was also inspired by the attention that women's boxing, female boxing, has been getting with Taylor Serrano, Shields Marshall. So I think there was a funny quote that I think she had said in that video that we posted on our Twitter, where she said, she was like, yeah, she's like, promoters used to get us on these cards or at these events just to take our clothes off, but now they're getting us to fight. And she was like, and now there's women there who voluntarily want to take their clothes off and make money on that price. So I thought it was kind of a funny quote how she kind of just shouted that out. But she looked great, she looked happy, and she got the win. And I was surprised. I thought retirement was the goal for her after that fight, but she's back in it, and she was there.
Is that an OnlyFans reference that she's?
Yeah. I think that's what she was implying. Maybe like Ebony Bridges and all that. So and there's obviously MMA. Who is it? Paige Van Zant also is in that realm. So I didn't press her on names. I got the implication. But it wasn't like she was insulting them. She was saying it in a very happy way, like, oh, now it's their choice. We're not looked at as entertainment in that regard or anything. Like, people want to see us fight and stuff. But it's really good on the attention front. But I just thought it was a funny quote because she laughed at it. If you see the video that we posted, she kind of laughs about it when she says, "It's like, oh, now they want to do it because they're not getting forced to or something like that." So, but yeah, she looked great. Everything was good, and she got the W. So we'll see. Maybe she'll try to get a McCaskill or try to get another title shot somewhere down the line. We will see. And she's still signed to Tom Loeffler and 360 Promotions. So, I know some of their team was there because I saw some people with 360 hats walking around, like 6 people. I was like, oh, okay, nice promotion. I need one of those hats. So,
just on the subject of 360. Because I think we get like a few days off over the holidays, so we have to come up with non-timely type posts. So one of mine was just like 23 fighters, who have broken through recently. And I was going through I'm not kind of just limiting to prospects. It's just like if they're a champion who might have been overlooked all the way through to quite youngsters. Actually, I had Callum Walsh on there.
Oh yeah, he was at the fights. He was at the fights too. Yeah, Freddie Roach was training Curiel. Freddie Roach was training Curiel, and Callum Walsh was there because I think he's also trained by Freddie Roach. So he was there.
Yeah, he does about Callum. He goes to the fights in California. I've seen him at the Apex supporting Tony Ferguson. He's got a relationship with Dana White, sponsored by Howlerhead. Dana White shouts him out quite frequently. Dana White even went to one of Tom Loeffler's shows at Montebello, Quiet Cannon.
Yeah,
he's trained by Freddie Roach, represented by the same guy who's represented like Golovkin and the Klitschko's. There's a lot of power behind Callum Walsh. Quite interesting.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I have a funny story about him. Remind me afterwards. I have a funny story about him.
Okay. I look forward to hearing that.
Right, moving on. What everyone's been waiting for. End of year quiz. Pencils.
End of year quiz, yeah. If you listen to last year's episode, I think the last couple of years we've done something like this, right, Mike?
I think so, yeah. I think it's been the last 2 years. So if you're listening at home, grab your pens, pencils, get ready. Only 10 questions. We'll go all the way through, and then we'll go back around and see who got the most right. And they are deliberately hard.
Damn. All right. I heard it.
Okay, gentlemen, are you ready?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yep.
So, okay, question 1. How many fights did the legendary Louis Van Pooch have in 2022? How many fights?
We don't get choices on that one?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Damn. Okay.
This is his record. 13 wins, 152 losses, and 4 draws. So how many fights did Louis Van Pooch have in 2022?
All right.
You ready, Danny?
Yep.
Okay, next, second one. Who am I? A veteran of 55 fights, has fought in the USA, the UK, Mexico, Japan, Venezuela, Russia, Panama, and Argentina. His first professional fight was in Japan. He went 89-5 as an amateur. He fought only 2 fights in 2022 and lost both. Both fights were in Russia. I think, Al, did you put one down, Al? You've already got that?
Yeah, the person, I had a brain fart and I couldn't think who it is, and I was like sure it was this, but I've finally, like, it's popped in my head, that name, but I don't know if that's the right answer. It's the one that I was thinking of, though. So I'm glad
it's easy. It's one of those ones when I say the answer, you'll be like, "Fuck yeah!"
I think I put something down. I
put something down.
I'm hoping.
Okay, so for this one, I'm going to give you 3 categories and 3 fighters. So just match a fighter to the category. Okay. So the first category is jab connect percentage. Second category is fewest punches thrown per round. And the last one is average total punches thrown per round. And then now you have to match these 3 fighters. Triple G, Gervonta Davis, and Brandon Figueroa. So match one fighter to one category that you think that they're the top of.
Number 1, right? Like they're the top of that category.
So these fighters are top of one of these 3 categories.
I feel like I don't know if I've got false confidence, but like, really pleased with the way this is going so far. But yeah, it could be false confidence.
If you get 100%, it's getting harder next year.
I mean, famous last words, we're 3 down, got 7 to go, but
I'll just choose some random journeyman and be like, how many fights has this guy had? No, everyone's going to be like, who is he?
I hope I feel like some of these are like, especially that one, like I feel like I got it, but I'm just like, I feel like it's not like a trick. Like you think, you have one answer, you think it's going to be at the top, and then it's like, oh no, it's not. Like what? Like
you finished, Danny?
Yeah.
Okay. Question 4. Which fight had the largest reported crowd? So Ryan Garcia against Javier Fortuna. Gervonta Davis against Rolando Romero. And lastly, Terence Crawford, Nisian. Just pick the one that you think had the largest reported crowd in attendance.
And we're not talking about gate or anything. We're talking about like people just in the building.
Bums in seats. Exactly. Just bums in seats.
Yeah.
Good. Question 5. Which of these 140-pound fighters has the biggest Instagram following? Because social media is so important. Regis Prograis, Jose Ramirez, and lastly, Josh Taylor.
Oh man.
Was it this year when Devin Haney was like, I've got more Instagram followers than you?
I think it was that. I think it was this year. I think you're right.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love that, there's a good reference. That's quite tricky, that one. And it's good they're all in the same weight class. Jeez.
I was going to stick somebody else in the mix, but that person had significantly more, so I had to take them out.
We get bonus points if we guess who was the mystery 4th.
I think you'd guess it quite easily, I think. You ready, Danny?
Yeah.
You looked up. Question 6. Which arena had the most fights in 2022? the Dignity Health and Sports Park, aka the StubHub, the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, and the Barclays Center, New York.
Big three.
Big Al's quick off the mark every time. That head's back up looking at me.
I was just thinking as well, like for boxing, I prefer the boxing fights at the MGM, and it's weird. Like I like the MMA at T-Mobile. I don't know why I like the difference. Really, it shouldn't make any difference. But yeah, the MGM fights. I think it's because maybe just feels like a little bit history maybe comes into it.
That's what I was gonna say. I think it's more historical for boxing fights that have been there, so you kind of feel the atmosphere a little bit more. Because I agree with that. I think I'd prefer to watch a fight at the MGM than a boxing fight at the MGM than at MGM than T-Mobile.
I do love T-Mobile though. Like some of the it's the home of the Golden Knights, the MMA, the big UFC shows. The production on UFC is really, really good when you're in the crowd or in the venue. But yeah.
Okay, question 7. According to BoxRec, I had to put that in there because someone might correct me on this. According to BoxRec, how many cards were promoted by these promoters in 2022? Actually, just give me the highest. Just give me the highest. Okay, and these are by BoxRec. So Oscar De La Hoya, Tom Brown, TGB, Eddie Hearn, or Bob Arum.
And it's just who's got the most shows in.
Who did the most shows as promoter in 2022?
I'm going to be so annoyed if I haven't got like at least.
I thought that one was going to be obvious, but it was actually very, very close.
And we're talking about global, right? You didn't say like United States or anything or England.
Correct. Yeah. Just when you click on their name as promoter, I counted all their shows in 2022.
Okay. I put my answer down.
Okay. Number 8. Which current heavyweight has fought Vitaly Klitschko, Tyson Fury, Eric Chisora, Manuel Charr, Anthony Joshua, Pulev, Daniel Dubois, Hrgovic, Bakoli, and Marius Wack, and is still fighting?
Man. The answer I was thinking of, you said it in that list. I was like, okay, it's obviously not him. Man. I know I'm gonna be so pissed if I don't get this. That's literally, and he's still fighting, you said.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh man. Let me see. Yeah, I'm just gonna guess, and I know this is wrong because I'm pretty sure he didn't fight this guy, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
It's nice to know the journeyman.
I know.
It's like the old. There was a Brazilian journeyman heavyweight, I think, who did the rounds in the early 2000s. I think his name was Nascimento. But yeah, I remember him coming to the UK for quite a few of the. Well, I might be misremembering, but I just remember him boxing quite a few of the upcoming heavyweights, like 15 years ago or so.
Question 9. Another Who Am I? Fought once in 2022. Went 20-0 before losing to James Kirkland. Other notable losses in his career are to Gabe Rosado, David Lemieux, and Michel Soro. This fighter currently 25-5 and was the main sparring partner.
Say it again. Say it again. You're cutting out sometimes.
Oh, sorry, he was currently sits at 25-5. Was the main sparring partner for Manny Pacquiao when Pacquiao fought Margarito.
Oh, damn. Oh man. And he fought once this year.
Yeah, he fought once in 2022, went 20-0 before losing to James Kirkland. Also lost to Gabe Rosado, David Lemieux, Michel Soro. Currently sits at 25-5 and was the main sparring partner for Manny Pacquiao when he fought Margarito.
I was feeling really good, but the past few questions I've just had some real Hail Mary guesses, including this one.
I gave it a shot. I don't even. Yeah, I'm gonna give it. I'll give it a shot. Yeah. I'm ready for the next one.
Okay, the last question, question 10. So this is another match. So I want you to match these 4 fighters to their amateur records.
Uh-oh.
So I'll give you the 4 fighters to begin with. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, Ugas, and Virgil Ortiz. Are you ready for the amateur records?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so the first one to match is 58-12. Do you want me just to give you all 4?
Yeah. I'm writing them down, then I'm gonna match them.
Okay, so 58-12 is the first one. 124 wins to 12 losses. 140 wins to 20 losses. And lastly, 135 wins and 12 losses.
Damn.
Al straight back up again. Here we go. He's finished.
I'm not done yet. Hold on.
That was a really good quiz. You've outdone yourself.
So you've said that before the answers, though. You end up with like one.
Regardless of the answers, I had a really good time. And I feel like even if the answers are wrong, there's like educated guesswork, that I'm going to try and claim.
All right.
Okay. Right. Let's rewind. Question 1. How many fights did Louis Van Pooch have in 2022? Danny?
I put 8. I think it's more than that. I put 8.
I'll put 18.
21.
I knew it was higher, but I was like, I'm gonna stay conservative. I'll go a little bit lower, but
see, I reckon Al might have got this one. So number 2, who am I? A veteran of 55 fights, fought in America, UK, Mexico, Japan, Venezuela, Russia, Panama, and Argentina. Started pro career in Japan, went 89-5 as an amateur, and fought twice in 2022, losing both. Al Dawson.
I went Jorge Linares.
I went Jorge Linares too.
Boom, both right. Well done.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it was Japan and did you say Venezuela? You didn't say. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, when he said all those,
yeah.
And then you said he fought in Japan, and then he fought. But the ones at the end when you're like he fought in Russia, I was like, did he fight in Russia this year? And I was like, oh man. But I just did process of elimination. I was like, well, he said Venezuela, he said United States, and then he said Japan, and he started his career in Japan. He was promoted by Tekken Promotions. I was like, it has to be Linares. I was like, there's nobody else with that type of career that's like memorable right now.
This is such a cool career. It's like literally taking him all around the world. Like I don't know what his upbringing was like, but boxing's like whatever lifestyle could he have had that's literally taken him all of the corners of the planet and become like a decent name in the sport as well.
Question 3. So who do you have? First one, jab connect percentage. Who did you put, fellas?
You want to go first, Al?
I went Triple G.
I went Triple G too on jab connect.
And you're both correct. Fewest punches thrown per round.
I said Davis.
Yeah, I thought that was like an easy Davis layup there.
So you both went for Brandon Figueroa for the average total punches thrown in a round.
Yes.
Correct on all 3.
Yeah. See, that's the one I knew the Triple G one. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's right. I was like, and then the next 2, I was like, no, Davis, I know he's a little bit more patient, but I thought it was like a trick. I was like, but what if it is Figueroa? I don't know. But I went with my gut. We both got it.
One Figueroa fight. I can't remember who was the opponent, but I think they combined for like well over 2,000 punches. It was an absurd amount of punches.
Yeah, that popped into my head too. I was like, I know Figueroa was in a war where they just threw
Fulton?
punches. Was it Fulton?
And he fought Fulton, maybe?
I don't know.
That's just a guess.
Yeah, could have been.
I'll say so. Question 4: which fight had the largest reported crowd? Ryan Garcia Fortuna, Gervonta Davis, Rolando Romero, or Terence Crawford, David Avanesian? Mr. Dawson.
I went Davis Romero.
Danny Z.
I said Crawford Avanesian.
Davis Rolando Romero, 18,970.
Oh, yeah, I knew it.
In second place, Crawford Avanesian, 14,630.
Oh man.
Ryan Garcia was around 7.
Yeah, Ryan Garcia Fortuna was reportedly 12,314.
You know what? We were at the Ryan fight, so I knew it's not that one. But I thought, for some reason, that Rolly and Tank and Crawford Avanesian, the arenas were similar in size. So I thought, okay, they might be separated by the teeniest amount of a margin. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna go Hail Mary. I'll say Crawford Avanesian, but damn, I thought I should have said Davis just because he's like, we talked about him being box office. I don't know why I just didn't go that way, but I thought it was closer in the arena size. But
what's the capacity for the Barclays? Is it just your standard 20,000?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that wasn't a sellout. But 80K is still good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still very, very impressive.
Did you guys go to the Madison Square Garden much? It seems like Barclays has kind of taken over, but what we're saying about MGM and T-Mobile, like Madison Square Garden has more of the history. I'm just wondering if people kind of prefer one over the other in New York.
I've never been for boxing at MSG. Not yet. That's a bucket list type thing for me.
I mean, I think it's also like Barclays Center is obviously newer. MSG's been there for so many years with so much history. But it's also Barclays Center struck that deal with PBC, for the last several years to help them advertise themselves to compete with, I guess, the crosstown rival in MSG. It kind of gives them marketing and advertising, like, hey, we're also here too, just down the way. Because it's hard to compete with a venue like Madison Square Garden. So they're always going to get fights, but they're always going to get the cream of the crop fights, the big marquee fights. And, Barclays Center obviously gets marquee fights too, but it's been a little bit more consistent with them in the flow of fights that they get the last several years or so. But yeah, MSG is always going to be there. We've been wanting to attend a fight in MSG for a long time. So if you ever get a chance to do that now, definitely take that opportunity.
Mm.
Question 5. Which of these 140-pound fighters has the biggest Instagram following? Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, Regis Prograis. Mr. Dawson?
I went with Taylor.
Danny?
You see, I put Taylor down and then I crossed it out. And I put Jose Ramirez just because Jose Ramirez has been on the ESPN platform a little bit longer than Taylor.
You need to start sticking with your instincts. That's two in a row. 2 in a row that you've. Yeah, Josh Taylor, 237,000. Jose Ramirez, 108. And Regis Prograis, surprisingly, 125.
Man. Yeah, I just thought.
I was just thinking the Super Series.
Yeah, that's true.
Just kind of blowing up in 2019 and having, I don't know what percentage is the UK fans, but I imagine there was quite a lot of UK backing MTK Global, and even though he's fallen kind of out of, I'm not saying he's irrelevant, but he's not as it doesn't seem to be as relevant as when he won that tournament.
Right.
I imagine he picked up a hell of a lot of his followers back then.
Damn. I put his name down too, and I crossed it out, and because I thought, Jose Ramirez has been on ESPN with the exposure in the United States, but should have went with my first answer. Oh well.
Question 6. Which arena had the most fights in 2022? Dignity Health and Sports Park, aka the StubHub. T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. Barclays Center, New York. Mr. Dawson?
I went Barclays. I knew it wasn't the T-Mobile just because I think there's only been a few. I would have gone to them all. I think there was only 2 for boxing, the 2 Canelo fights. The other, like Shakur Stevenson, was at the MGM. It's kind of tied between StubHub and Barclays, but I went Barclays.
Danny, what did you write down and cross out and replace it with?
I wrote Dignity Health.
Barclays Center.
Oh my God, we've got an early lead.
Barclays Center.
What was the difference? What was the difference between them?
Barclays Center with 3: Davis, Rowley, Danny Garcia, Benavidez, and Wilder, Hellenius. T-Mobile 2, and Dignity Health and Sports Park 2.
Really, Dignity Health only had 2 this year?
I think it was the Charlo fight and a other.
Wow, I don't know. Maybe because we live in the area, so I always think that there's always fights there. So I always thought like, oh yeah, it's a popular venue for boxing for pretty much every promoter.
Normally most.
They only have 2. They only had 2 fights this year there. Wow, I'm surprised about that. I thought I was on the money with that, but I guess I lost that one too.
Question 7. According to BoxRec, how many cards? Sorry, I changed it, didn't I? Which promoter had the most cards in 2022? Choices were Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy, Tom Brown, TGB, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, Bob Arum, Top Rank. Al?
I remember seeing something on this on Twitter literally last week, and I was actually surprised how many cards TGB had. They certainly in that thing I saw had way more than Top Rank. So for me, it was either between TGB and Matchroom. I just went TGB. I think they'd be.
Now that you've said that, according to BoxRec, that's not correct. That's why I put according to BoxRec. But Danny?
I said Matchroom.
So it was Oscar De La Hoya with 17.
Really?
That is
no. Sorry. I'm going down the list. I'm going down the list. Oscar De La Hoya was 17. Sorry. Oscar De La Hoya was 17. TGB, according to BoxRec, Al, 18. Bob Arum, 26. And Eddie Hearn with 30. So Matchroom.
I knew Matchroom because like he just had cards all over the world, and every time he was like at different cards, he was talking about like, oh yeah, next week I'm going here, and like, so that's what stuck in my mind. I knew I had a feeling Top Rank was right there, but I didn't think they overtook him. So it was Matchroom.
Yeah, it was 30, and Bob Arum, and Top Rank was 26.
Got it.
Which is weird because then Eddie said that he was going to have one every single weekend.
Right? Yeah, I remember him saying that, like pretty much every weekend that he was going to have something. So that's a quote that kind of came into my mind. He always said that in interviews.
Quite far off. Anyway, which current heavyweight has fought Vitaly Klitschko, Tyson Fury, Derek Chisora, Manuel Charr, Anthony Joshua, Kubrat Pulev, Daniel Dubois, Hergovich, Martin Bacoli, and Marius Wack. Mr. Dawson.
So originally, I did put like my favorite big man in the world. I've got Michael Shepherd there.
That's right.
I then ended up blurting out an answer, and I was like, "Oh God, I should probably just put that down, Nascimento, because he was probably fighting when Fury and all these guys were quite younger."
You're gonna kick yourself when you hear the answer now. Not because it's me, but you'll be like, "Oh my God." Danny?
I don't think it's right, but I put Povetkin.
Kingpin.
Oh,
mother.
Kevin Kingpin Johnson.
Oh.
Yep. And he's still going strong. Question 9. Pardon me. Who am I? I fought once in 2022. Went 20-0 before losing to James Kirkland. Also lost to Gabe Rosado, David Lemieux, and Michel Sorrow. Currently sits at 25-5. Was the main sparring partner for Manny Pacquiao when Manny Pacquiao was fighting Margarito. Alan?
This was a Hail Mary for me. I put Alfredo Angulo.
You know what?
You should have a better, because he was Freddie Roach and he was Golden Boy.
Was Edwin? No, that's what I put.
Glenn Tapia.
Oh man! Wow, that didn't cross my mind at all. Tapia was a sparring partner. What?
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think like who. I don't know why, but you didn't mention that he fought Manny Pacquiao, but that he was a sparring partner. But I don't know why I thought Joshua Clottey at first. Because Joshua Clottey was like a big guy. But then you said he didn't fight Manny Pacquiao, but he was a sparring partner for the Margarito fight. And I thought, oh, maybe it's Clottey, because I think he fought Clottey around that time or right after that. But then you didn't say that he actually beat him. And then I thought Valero. Because weren't they sparring partners?
Edwin Valero?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I think they sparred a few times around that time. Because Valero died. He died when?
He was unbeaten though when he died.
No, I know he wasn't beaten, but I don't know why he just popped into my head. That's what I wrote down, but I know I was like, that was a Hail Mary.
Question 10. So match these fighters to their amateur records. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, Eudenis Ugas, and Virgil Ortiz. So I'll say the fighter, and if you guys just shout out your guess. Errol Spence.
I went 1, 2, 4, 12.
I put 140 and 20.
It should have been 135 and 12.
Damn. It was between those two.
Yeah, that's what I put for Crawford.
Next is Terence Crawford.
I got 1, 3, 5, 12, so I've got both of those wrong.
I put 1, 2, 4, 12.
His is actually 58 and 12.
Oh my God! I knew.
That's another one I got wrong there.
So the next one is Eudenis Ugas. I'll just tell you the rest. Eudenis Ugas 124 and 12, and lastly that leaves Virgil Ortiz with 140 and 20.
Wow.
All of those wrong. My logic with Ugas, I put him having the most just because Cuban.
Yeah, his was actually stupid hard to find because I was like, you know what, I'll do the welterweight division. I'll do the top 4 guys pretty much. And Ugas, like, it took me a long time to find it for some reason. Even though he's obviously got a stellar amateur record from Cuba, maybe it's just hard to find something that's, actually believable, I guess, because they have so many fights out there. But hang on, I didn't even keep count. So how did you guys end up doing?
Oh, I don't think I got any of those right. I thought I assumed Ugas, like Al was saying, because the Cuban background, and Spence, he was an Olympian. So I thought, okay, those two have to be at the top. And I tipped it to Spence as having the highest record, 140 and 20, because of the Olympic background. And then I put Ugas at number 2 at 135 and 12. And then I was trying to think between Crawford and Ortiz. And I thought, well, Ortiz is kind of young. I was like, I think he started a little earlier. Like he had less fights in amateur and he just went into the pros. So that's why I gave him 58 and 12. But
yeah, that was my logic. I was just thinking, literally just stereotyping. Ugas is Cuban. He must have had the most. Ortiz, having Mexican lineage, probably started out in Mexico. Might have not had a bigger amateur career. I think Alvarez didn't have a big. I think he went pro at like 14 or 15, didn't he?
yeah, supposedly he says that he like had a lot of amateur fights, but that hadn't been verified. But he says he's fought a lot more than what's been out there, like in reported numbers.
Reynoso even says he's had more pro fights.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I think he says like, oh, he's had like 20 more fights. They're just you guys just didn't count them, and it's like, oh, okay,
like the modern day Pele.
Yeah,
Pele says he's got like,
with his goals.
Yeah,
those some good questions. That was
that was a really good quiz. I got so when we have like number 3, we all got like, is that just 1 point or is it 3 points?
We'll just go 1 point because this is the world famous super hard Michael Shepherd quiz.
I got 5, so I got the same as Tom, the famous.
I think Tom was around there. Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
He got 50%. I got 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I got what, 3? Yeah, I think I got
I'll take
3.
that. I mean, I don't need to adjust it then and make it harder. 50%. That's high enough.
No, it's pretty solid. Yeah, like. Oh,
right, moving on to the new segment of the Last Round podcast, and hopefully this will make you laugh. You ready, Danny?
Yeah.
I'm gonna play some music into this.
Uh-oh. We don't want to get copyright. I hope not. Are we getting a copyright for that?
No, it's not Dawson's Creek, but it's Dawson's Corner. This is going over to.
I was wondering. I was like, what is this?
I don't know. I was driving home and for some reason it just popped into me. I was like, you know what we'll do? We'll do Dawson's Corner. And I was like, what music can I do? And I was like, Dawson's Creek, Dawson's Corner.
Dawson's Creek. Yeah, that was the theme song. That's right.
That was the theme song to Dawson's Creek. So
I've got a habit of just popping into people.
Right. I was like, where are we going with this? I was like, what's going on here?
Right. I think me and Daddy both wanted to hit you up about a article you released. I think it was in the last week. The WWE
a couple weeks ago,
boxing.
Yeah, you wrote about WWE.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Can you kind of, for the listeners out there, can you kind of touch on that? Because it's been a popular topic. It's WWE such a conglomerate company, and it's just like, oh well, they're talking about kind of looking at it like as a UFC model. Maybe they can buy up all these promoters.
Stephanie McMahon's like, when I first spoke to her, I think she had the title Chief Brand Officer, but I think she's now co-CEO since Vince McMahon stepped down, literally in disgrace because of all the allegations that came to light through, I think, the Wall Street Journal. So it's her, the people that run the ship now, basically her, Triple H, and I think Nick Khan.
Right.
And Stephanie McMahon's quite good at going on like not talk shows, but when she's invited onto a stage to speak at various conferences. So she was speaking at the Wells Fargo, some Wells Fargo conference anyway, in, if it was late November, early December. And during that, it was, I think the question was like any new ventures that the WWE is getting into. And she mentioned boxing, and that they would be looking to enter boxing as one of several potential new avenues. And obviously they've got a pre-existing pay-per-view business and distributor, and they don't need any help doing that. I think Vince McMahon has promoted, not that Vince would be involved, I'm presuming, because of that the allegations of that would just dominate, wouldn't it, if suddenly Vince McMahon was going to be involved in boxing. So I think Vince McMahon used to promote a few boxing shows, so they've had it in family anyway, and I'm presuming they think it is a straightforward play. But there wasn't any details in it, so I don't know if they would, let's say like this year in 2022 we've had Marv Nation. Last year I think we had Triller, where they won a a certain fight went to a purse bid, and then someone random who nobody had really heard of before. I'm talking like, apart from serious hardcore media personnel who might be covering local shows like Marv Nation. They suddenly swoop in and they buy the rights to a certain fight. So that's one option for the WWE if they go down that route, and the other route would be, just off the top of my head, let's just quickly figure out what WWE is worth.
Oh man, 4 billion maybe.
5.25 billion. So they're pretty much, that's probably what UFC would be valued as, because UFC was sold to WME. I don't know, within the last 5 years for 4 billion, and presumably they're probably worth more now. So yeah, you've got a $5.25 billion company potentially entering boxing. Would they realistically want to just buy the rights for random world title fights that are, between a champion and a mandatory challenger, or would they want to build their own stable? If they're going to build their own stable, that's more work. Could they just buy top
rank? Yeah. Bob Arum said that he's open to offers.
Yeah. Could they just buy PBC? Because how much is Top Rank worth? I don't think there's any company in boxing that's worth anywhere near what WWE or UFC is. Out of all of them, the ones that are probably the most valuable, there's a lot of, Top Rank has a hell of a lot of really, really good prospects and contenders. Their roster is really good. They've also got a lot of archive footage of legends like Muhammad Ali. They've also got a lot of real estate in Las Vegas. Golden Boy Promotions is similar. They own that building in downtown LA. But the roster isn't as big. But you do have, fighters that you could build around in Ortiz, Ryan Garcia, and who would be the other? There's a big three, isn't there? Alexis Rocha is kind of there, but not just there. Just
Virgil.
Yeah, Virgil and Ryan, and maybe Munguia. Munguia's valuable for DAZN because I think he is a good, reliable subscriber driver for DAZN. PBC. But out of all those three options, well, Matchroom as well potentially, but out of all of those options, I've never heard any inkling of PBC wanting to sell. Oscar De La Hoya has said this year that he would sell, but he was talking about $1 billion, and I don't think Golden Boy's really worth that much. And the same with Top Rank. I mean, Bob Arum even said to me in 2020 that I can't remember who he said it first, but it's just a very off the cuff thing. And I went to his office, it was just like good timing. I was due to meet him like the following week, and I just brought it up, and I said, is that how realistic is that? And he said anything is for sale for the right price, and that he listed 3 companies that he would that he has spoken to about it. One of them was DAZN. One of them was, I think, Liberty Media. I can't remember who the other one was, but there were 3 massive companies that were interested in buying. But I think sometimes promoters just say things. Obviously,
yeah.
I don't know how realistic it would be for Top Rank to sell, because even if Bob Arum were to pass away or step down, the company's still in really good hands, because when you walk through Top Rank HQ, there's a lot of people that work there. There's a lot of officers, and there's a lot of people that know what they're doing behind the scenes. That the only difference would be you haven't got the larger than life guy leading it. So if nobody's going to sell, it's quite hard then to build a roster. So for me, I'm interested in if WWE were going to enter the space, but I think if I'm just thinking realistically, I think it would probably go the same way as Zuffa Boxing, where Dana White kind of would say he'd want to come in and do his own thing. But again, it's either you're going to overbid to win the rights of a certain world title fight that's gone to purse bids, or you're going to try and build a roster. And he never did any of those things through Zuffa Media, and I'm not sure WWE would either. But I think it would be interesting if they were going to give it a try.
I think what a splash that would be if their first entry into the boxing world will be at a high-profile purse bid or a purse bid of some sort. Just like, like we heard, I think when Triller was at I forgot which purse bid it was. The fight that didn't happen with them and all that. The Teofimo fight. I remember the reporters who were kind of reporting on that real time said like, "Oh, Triller is here." Like, what? Everybody's like, "Triller." They just kind of. I think if you go through that same scenario and you say WWE is here, people will jump on that. Like, what's going on here? That's a very interesting piece of information, and that's how they make it known. Like, oh yeah, we're here to spend money. And then all the major promoters are going to take notice of that.
I think potentially there could be a third option of how they do it. Because like Crawford said to, I'm not actually sure he did actually say it to PBC and Al Heyman, but he did mention that there were like mystery venture fund, people willing to fund the fight.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be another way WWE gets involved when they know there's a really big fight being mentioned. That maybe not if it involves a UK fighter, because if they're going to sell that fight out, not sell it out at a stadium, just sell it to whoever's going to bid the most. It would go to Saudi Arabia, and I'm not sure WWE could have outbid, an entire country with oil money. But for the Crawford Spence, maybe WWE could get involved. Like they've already got so much of the infrastructure in place just through their own pay-per-view platform, their own distributors that they've worked with, their own entire media company. And yeah, they've got people there that. How many people work at WWE? It's a hell of a big business, bigger than any one we've got in boxing. I'm not shut off to it. I think it'd actually be pretty good because, just think of just say they do go to a purse bid and they have who's recently gone to purse bid? Prograis and who did Prograis beat?
Peta.
Yeah. So say if they won the right to host that fight, I just think their ability to market and promote would be quite strong because they could just have Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, maybe even Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch, and just fill it with, just get two executives who are big names anyway that everyone knows, and then just get your, your bigger name talents and WWE superstars to get on the stage as well, and they would I think WWE. This might not be true anymore, but it used to be where WWE would own the social media accounts of the performers. So that's another avenue that they would be able to, market, if they did get into boxing. And I guess it's in a way that, PBC is able to do that because they've got, I'm guessing through Al Heyman, they know musicians. Yeah, and I get through Errol Spence, they know Texas athletes. The Charlos are in there with athletes in the South as well, and so it just becomes something that's talked about not just in boxing, but suddenly in NFL, suddenly in hip hop, and it's just through sheer contacts. WWE, how many contacts do they have in either business or sports? I don't think they'd be someone to just dismiss if they did get involved. I think they would be quite. They would make a significant splash straight away. It'd just be whether they could make it profitable. I'm guessing Dana White and Zuffa Boxing hasn't tried because they don't think whatever profits they could make would be worth the hassle.
No,
right.
I would agree with that. But Al, your first Christmas in the States?
Yeah. 11. It's coming up 11 months. But yeah, it's just flown by really. Everyone was saying, "Oh, Vegas is going to get hot. It's going to be too hot for you. You're English. You're not going to be able to handle the summer." It's not. The summers were fine. They've been and went quite quickly, even for a 9-month-long summer. But it's the winter you need to be worried about in the summer. As soon as the sun goes down, it still gets to 40, 35 Fahrenheit, which is 3 degrees if you're working off Celsius.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody warned me about the winters.
But it's nothing like Vegas, though. I'm sure you've experienced it in the last 11 months. It is a beautiful city, and there's a lot of things to do and a lot of sights to see over there.
Yeah, especially in the last few months, driving around, and especially on Saturday when I was at the UFC event. I had to leave just before the main event, but yeah, I saw I think 8 fights at the UFC. Drove to the Cosmopolitan, and it only took 10 minutes. And I was just thinking, I was driving. I wasn't driving on the strip. There's a road right next to it, obviously, that's got less traffic that the cars go on rather than it being a bit not pedestrianised, but yeah, I was just looking at the Bellagio, and I was like, it's pretty sweet living here, going from the market leading MMA promotion to Showtime, which is for me it's the production quality on Showtime is pretty slick. Speaking to people like Brian Custer, so polished, and the show went on and on because it was like a obviously I'd already covered the UFC, then there was the PBC side, and then there was the main with the promotions, but yeah, that was pretty invigorating to be a part of, seeing like a 17-year-old just look quality. It's kind of like I like seeing. I think that one of the things I wanted to do when I moved here was just like follow the career of someone, find someone really young that was starting and just follow them all the way through to when they're, winning world titles. And I think like through the ones that have left an impression on me teenager wise, I'm not sure if Callum Walsh is still a teenager, but he's definitely had that 360. Yeah, and then Robert Merriweather in the UFC, Raul Rosas has only just turned 18, and he's manhandling, adult men in a way that you wouldn't think an 18-year-old should be able to do. But yeah, so work-wise, it's been great moving here, and just even taking my family, going on vacation. You drive 5-6 hours in any direction, and you're in some of the most beautiful places in the world. California is stunning. Tahoe, up at the top of Nevada and at the top of California, is pretty sweet. We've done the Grand Canyon. Gone over to Utah, and that was even colder. As soon as the sun goes down in East Utah, it was like in Celsius, it was about -8. So that's like 15 Fahrenheit maybe. But when the sun came up, there was no snow where we were either. So it was literally just the temperature that was, there was no wind or anything, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, we were just in Moab, so it was like it felt like I was walking down, like a cowboy town from like old Southwest America. And then you're just driving distance to just stunning scenery. The American Southwest and the West Coast, there's nothing like it.
That is true. That is true. Well, I'll appreciate you coming on as usual. If you want to shout out people, tell them where you can find you, where they can find you on all your socials.
I just want to shout out you guys. Out of all the podcasts I've been on this one the most regularity. It's the most fun, and I hope we can keep doing it again and again. And we have to have Dawson's Creek and the Dawson's Corner going forward. Let's keep that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Dawson's Corner. I like.
I'll have to send you the things so you can slip it in every time Al comes on. There's a little entrance, like a WWE entrance music.
Yeah.
You can even
broken glass like Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dawson.
I don't want to wait.
You could even start a column on the Insider called Dawson's Corner. Whatever your title is, like you never know. It could
like
work.
Dawson's Creek, but then it's crossed out, and then Dawson's Corner.
Yeah, it could work. It could work.
Did you actually give out your handles, or did we went one off track, right?
Well, Alan Dawson Sport on Twitter. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be around. There's a lot of journalists going under. I've never badmouthed Elon Musk on it really, but I haven't really set up a Mastodon or any alternative yet. But literally the only social media account that I use for majority work purposes is that one, Alan Dawson Sport. And then I've got an author page at Insider, which is something like insider.com/author/Alan-Dawson. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I'm easily available on Twitter. And you can even email me. You can figure out what the email is. It's pretty easy.
But I think it's on your columns and your articles.
It's on my author page. I think it's even on my Twitter page.
And we are at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And no show next week unless we come up with some bonus type episode that we want to do next Tuesday. If you want to close us out, Danny Z.
Yeah. So Alan, you're the last show of 2022 for the Last Round podcast. We obviously definitely appreciate you. You've been one of our most reoccurring guests. Somebody just messaged us. Actually, I think 2 people messaged us last week. Because we've been doing a lot of shows the last several shows. It's just been me and Mike just discussing fights, and like, oh, you guys haven't had a little bit of a guest dry spell. We're like, oh yeah, we'll get some, and then we asked for recommendations. They're like, oh, we want to see Dawson back on. We had 2 people ask about that on Twitter. They messaged us in our DMs about that. So
nice way
we're
of
always
saying,
appreciative.
a nice way of saying, hey, you guys, we're sick of listening to you two. We get a guest on. I was like, okay, I got your drift, guys, on Twitter. I know what you were saying.
Yeah. So we're always appreciative when you give us the time, and you're always welcome back anytime, of course, Al.
Let's do one in the new year as well, then.
Yeah, appreciate it. For our guest of the week, and Al Dawson of The Insider, for my co-host Michael Shepard, who led this week's show, a very rare occasion. So if you're listening, it's historic. Once again, this is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.